I just want to express something real quick. I think a lot about Russia and I think about the world and like why I'm here. And I think sometimes like my original thought before I came to Russia was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're fetishizing a country, you're putting it on a pedestal and making it seem like, you're trying to attach your identity to something that's not yours. I've done this my whole life. Like, I'm a traveler, I don't belong to one place. So I can always like form my identity around like a place that I'm at because I could recreate myself. But I made sure that not to do that with Russia because I tested it. I said, you know, I like Russia, but I always want to make the distinction that I'm not Russian. I'm not trying to be Russian, and I'm not trying to say make a distinction between Russia and the United States. I notice it's like a popular thing to do, like how much Russia is better than the West, whatever. That's not what I'm trying to get into. I'm not trying to do anything. Like, all I'm trying to do is figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. I had a calling to come here. I don't know why it is. I'm not trying to say that I know why it is. But often I think about like I have a deep respect for Russian people, and I think, well, why? Like there's a whole world out there, and there's a lot of cultures that are respectable cultures, and they've had a crazy past. Why is Russia different? Why is Russia special? The only reason that I came up with was simply because it's my own personal story. The only reason people say this about like the news too, like, well, why do you focus on one country when this is happening over here? It's like a spotlight on a particular place for like no reason. Well, I was thinking about that and I thought, well, I care about Russia because I have a personal history with Russia. Even if I didn't have a personal history with Russia, if you feel a pull towards something, that's something, it's like you just go with it. I don't know about other places. I don't really even know about Russian history. But I feel like I have an understanding of something about Russia. And I came first to Russia when I was 13 years old with my church. I wasn't supposed to come here. Like, it was originally going to be a canceled trip. Somebody had sponsored me to go, meaning they had paid for my trip anonymously. I didn't know who it was. So I was chosen to come to Russia for some reason. And it was during a pivotal year. I think the year 2000 in Russia was a special year. From what I understand, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Before that, Russia was a communist country. I've read books. The only understanding that I have about communism, like I read an Ayn Rand book, like one of her first books, and it kind of depicts like communist Russia and how the vibe of that is. It's so when that collapsed, it turned into like a whatever you want to call a makeshift capitalist society. The 90s were a notoriously tumultuous era. And then the year 2000 was like, I felt like a pivot year for Russia. It was like it was coming out of the 90s and it was going into like a new era where it was kind of stabilizing a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm not 100% sure about this, but the year 2000 felt like a special year. But as a 13-year-old, as a kid, I got to witness with my own two eyes and feel with my own self in a completely different environment other kids my age that lived essentially in a different world that I could not imagine. Us silly kids coming with a church as privileged Westerners that happen to be born in the U.S. through no choice or just by complete chance. The whole takeaway going home was basically the motto was I appreciate what I have at home more. I appreciate what I have at home more, which is like such a, I don't know, unintentionally disrespectful thing to say, because it's saying like, oh, you know, I have it so much better than these like, you know, these terrible conditions that are in this whatever third world country or whatever you want to call it. I appreciate so much what I have in the US because I got to see such a terrible place. You know what I mean? The thing about Russia was that what impressed upon me from visiting was it was a psychically oppressive feeling. It was a heavy weight on your head. I got to meet kids that were my age and younger that were orphans. Granted, I think a lot of the parents gave them up to the orphanages because they couldn't afford to raise them, but they would still be in touch with the parents or something like that. I think a lot of them maybe were estranged from their parents. Their parents lived far away now and they didn't have contact with them. But I could not imagine what it would be like growing up as an orphan in this type of country. Not only are you an orphan, but you're an orphan in Russia, which after the break from the Soviet Union, the complete destabilization, it was just a sense of like hopelessness. There was a feeling of like there's no future. Like there was nothing on the horizon. And imagine being an orphan thinking, what in the hell am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna get a job and live like a normal life? Like, life is terrible. So the feeling that I got as a kid of like Russia, when it was time to leave, I didn't feel like, oh, I want to stay and like hang out more. No, it was like, it was exhausting. Like, it was like I felt emotionally and like mentally drained because it felt like such a heavy environment. So that's why now I'm trying to tie this all together. That's why now I'm a visitor. I am a visitor. I am a foreigner. I am never, ever going to be a Russian. Okay? I can never be a Russian. And it's not because I don't think I would have like what it takes to grow up like this. And that's what I'm saying. I'm a visitor. These people grew up in this environment of like darkness. I'm thinking of just like almost hopelessness. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong if you didn't feel hopeless and you're a Russian, but when I came here, there was a sense of like there is no prospects on the horizon for me. You're just stuck here and it's just what, you know, and they have a history also of just enduring tough times. So I was just thinking of like, yeah, like what's the difference between Russia and other places? Russian history for me is extremely personal. It's not something that I read in a book. It's not something that I read about, oh yeah, the great emperor of the past, which is fine. Like, that's cool. A lot of people talk about history and stuff like that. I can't say, I'm not going to sit here and be like, history's stupid, you know, like it has there's no relevance on now. But for me, my history with Russia is personal and of extreme importance and significance to me because it's inspiring to be in this place around these people that can endure and continue forward in a place that is so just I don't even want to use the word oppressive because that word has weird connotations. It's just a heavy vibe, man. It's just a heavy vibe. And these people are built different. They grew up different. I read a quote that made me think about this of that movie Bane. Remember that quote where he's like, you adopted the darkness, I was born into it. That's the way I think of Russians, man. It's like, bro, these people were born into darkness. I cannot imagine growing up during that time. Just the psychic break of the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, it's like whatever, people think, oh, great, communism sucked and now you're free again. But it's like, imagine being in jail and you're free from jail. Like, yeah, you're free, but you're also institutionalized, and now you're in a completely different world that you don't know how to survive in. It's a crazy thing, man. And the 90s were crazy. Russia was a lot more dangerous back then, and for it to have evolved and come to what it is now is like a beautiful story to me personally. Russia's history, and by what I mean history is like my personal history with Russia, seeing how it has evolved over the years, and also how it has stayed the same. It's like Russia inspires the shit out of me, but I would never disrespect Russians by saying like, oh, I'm a Russian, I live in Russia now, like I have a deep respect for Russians, and I only look at them for inspiration. I'm not trying to like kiss their ass, but I really do like have a deep respect for them and like what they went through. I couldn't imagine going through that, and every day that I look outside, I'm reminded of that. And I think it's a huge honor and a privilege that I get to be here. Whatever happens, I don't care, good or bad. I take the good and the bad. To me, it's all love, because I love being here. Okay? So that's it.